Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Parallax. I'm here with Ole Bjerg, who is doing a course with us called Money and Love. Would you like money to flow into your life? Ole is a wonderful guy, friend of mine. He's also author of several books, and he's thought very deeply about this subject of money, written about it, done other seminars about it, and I'm very glad that he's coming to do a course at Parallax. I think people will benefit from it greatly. The other thing I should say is it's related to something called family constellations.
Mhm.
So let's start off with that. Money and love. What's the connection? What's all that about?
Yeah. So I've been studying money for over a decade, and I've written several books about money. And these books have primarily been about like banking and central banking and different kinds of money and how money is created. So I've kind of looked at it from that side. And then I've also done some consulting in terms of uh, advising people on what to do with their personal finances and stuff. And one of the things so sometimes I've advised people to, yeah, you should buy silver, you should buy Bitcoin or stuff like that. And then, but I sense with a lot of people, there's a hesitation to doing that. It's like technically it's very simple to do it, but there's something holding them back. And a lot of people like years back when I talked about Bitcoin, now they are coming back to me and say, "Oh, I wish I bought Bitcoin when you said so." And then I tell them, "Well, you can still get in. It's going to go up anyway." And then well, they don't know. Okay, so anyway, what I sense is that even though if you ask most people, "Would you like to be rich or would you like to have a lot of money?" Most people will say yes, but on another level, on an unconscious level, a lot of people, they don't want to be rich. There's something in them that's holding them back. So sometimes, like when we think about money in terms of our personal life, we tend to kind of think about how should I put where should I put my pension funds? How should I invest?
Mhm.
Stuff like that, sort of this outer. And that's also important. But if you don't have the inner things right, you can do all the investing you want.
Yeah.
It's not going to help you because either there's something in you which will not invest in the right things, or even if you do invest in the right things and if you do make a lot of money, if your inner constitution or if you have some blockings or something like that, you're not going to get any freedom out of whatever money you get because you're entangled with money. And this word entanglement, this is something we know from family constellation. I think we're going to talk about later
Yeah.
what that means.
Yeah.
But
So I wonder,
yeah,
um, just as an introduction here, if part of that is the sort of Protestant view of money as being the root of all evil and associated with sin and bad stuff, like money is associated with greed. And so people have a sort of even though they want money, they have a kind of a double bind. They feel guilty about
yeah,
about resources, about having stuff.
yeah.
I feel like they should not have stuff, that they'd be more pure if they didn't have money flowing into their life, that money is very not spiritual. But isn't it true that money, there's something extremely spiritual about money because it gets down to the roots of, so many things about who we are.
It's spirit, at least it's spiritual in the way that it kind of moves in a spiritual field. So money tends to kind of follow whatever pattern or whatever dynamics or impulses or is inside of you. Money will kind of respond to that in a
Hmm.
weird way. And when I say weird, I could also say in a spiritual way. There's connections that, like some people will have a way of like attracting money. And some people will have something in them that repels money, and it works almost sort of magnetically. We can't entirely see why does money move in this way in my life. So yes, I truly believe that there's something spiritual, and of course, what you're talking about here, there's also some cultural or religious levels to that. But I also think that different people connect to these things differently. So
Yeah.
some people will, yes, they will feel guilt around making a lot of money, but others will make a lot of money and don't feel any guilt, but maybe they will feel that they don't have enough money. Like they always need more money, and some people will make a lot of money and then they will spend all their energy like just being anxious that they're going to lose it. So there's like a whole host of different combinations of this.
Yeah.
But just to respond to your question about money and love, so basically money or economics in general is about giving and taking. It's about how we interact, exchange things and other things and work and with the world. And love is also about giving and taking. Like in relationship to our parents, for instance, we receive. In relationship to our spouse, we give and take. And in relation to our children, we give. And so it's giving and taking. And so what happens is that, and this is also why we can work with money using the methods of family constellation, is because the place where we all learn how to give and take is in the family. And it's in our primarily, or first and foremost, in our relationship to our mother, and then, of course, also to our father, and then also in relation to all of our family history. There's like patterns of giving and
Right.
taking
Yeah.
in that. So and so your relations, the way you relate to giving and taking in love relations, often manifest themselves in the way you interact with money. So
Well,
if
maybe
you,
I could
yeah,
just to make it a little bit personal here. You know, I had a wealthy grandparents who lost everything,
yeah,
and there was so much shame around that. To the point where my grandfather died of a stomach ulcer, and intense shame around this money, and so I think I had a contempt for money for most of my younger life, and I kind of was a I went from place to place, didn't care about money. It was very much of a spiritual vagabond in that
mm,
sense. And then I have a family, and now, so of course it becomes a more serious concern. And I think it took me a lot of time to figure out the value of money.
mm,
But I do think there's deep-seated sort of in my own there's deep-seated family trauma related to money there
mm,
somehow.
yeah,
And
and
so I imagine that's the same for a lot of people.
yeah. I mean, some people will have like a very like healthy or beneficial relationship to money, and others won't. And if you don't, yes, it's probable that there's something trauma or something in your yeah, in generations back, and
Hmm.
those are the things that we can uncover in using family constellations. uh,
So what
yeah,
about you? How have you how is you personally your relationship to money and in terms of the constellations? What have you learned and how have you put those two things
I
together?
used I think it has changed over the course of my life. um uh,
Welcome to Parallax, the resurrection of truth, beauty, and goodness. Parallax, a media war engine. Parallax, the construction amidst eternal decay. Parallax, the portal to the edge of chaos. Parallax, poem and provocation. Parallax, mad philosophers and tantric demigods. Parallax, totem for an unknown god. Parallax, philosophy, and the return of the matriarch. Parallax, the end of the meaning crisis. Parallax, the whispering daemon in your ear. Parallax, the god of wisdom, wine, and love. Parallax, your home for superior publications, podcasts, and courses. Parallax, join us today.
I think I've always had a sense that there would always be enough money. I've never had this anxiety of there not being enough money. But at the same time, it's only recently that I've more sort of checked into this sense of abundance, that there is all the world, all the money that I would want. That's something, and so there was a time when I was I didn't like kind of looking into my bank account. I didn't like looking into my finances. I didn't like doing a budget. I didn't do that. I just either left it, or my wife did. We're not married anymore, but she used to do it. I would just leave it to her. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. It's not that I had a reckless relationship to money. I was not spending it, but I just didn't want to look at it. So there was something there, but and then several things happened. But I also worked with I did general family constellation work, but I also did some specific work around money. And where I am now, I have a much more relaxed and much more so money is something that liberates me to a lot. Of course, there can be like issues around it, but I would say I have this sense of abundance, and I have the sense that money works in it. It works to liberate me in my life. So that's not to say that I also do have issues around, like for instance, like with this course we're doing, we were talking about pricing the course and all that. I'm not very good at that, or I'm bad at that. I'm not very good at like putting a price on, or even selling my services. I'd rather just provide them for free, right? So this, which of course that can be something good in that, but I also do sense that there's something that I could actually work on and be more, free in terms of saying, yes, this is what I'm worth, this is what it's worth, and if you want to buy it and give me the money, and if not, that's also fine. You just don't buy it. So there's certainly something there that I need to, or I could work on. Maybe I'll do that maybe the workshop itself will do something for me.
It's interesting in terms of, Parallax. In the beginning we were just doing podcasts. It was a hobby, and we did it for pleasure and joy and experiment and all of that. No money coming in, and then there's a point at which you feel that if you're not getting something back for everything you're giving materially, you feel that you're a sucker, right?
Yeah.
You're being exploited in some kind of a way.
Yeah.
So you have to, at some point, charge money for stuff, and you have to charge money, and you have to value what you do. You have to say, this has a value. And so you can't undervalue what you do. So you can't underprice what you do, and you can't, but you don't want to feel like you're exploiting anybody and overprice it either. So you have to find that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. And I haven't found, I'm not good at it. To say that I'm not good at that. But yes. And I see some people who are good at it, and I look at them and I'm like, wow, you can do this. Wow, you're good.
No, me too.
And I'm happy for them. And there's also something I've noticed when I do family constellations, it's like the exchange of money in kind of plays into the work itself. So sometimes I've offered, especially in the beginning when I was learning how to do family constellation, I would just like do it with friends and say, oh, would you like a constellation? And I do the work, and they wouldn't pay me anything because I was learning, and also and that was okay. But I could also sense sometimes as I became better and better that when I didn't charge anything, it was almost as if there was less energy in the constellation itself.
Yeah.
Whereas if people have paid money for a constellation, they've already invested energy into the constellation. And then when you do the constellation, there's more energy to work with. You can move further, or you can get a more, like a more powerful intervention, if you like.
So maybe we should talk a little bit and unpack a little bit what family constellations are for people who don't know that, because I've done them and I found them very revealing
Mhm.
of a lot of things. I think it's a very beautiful process.
Yeah.
But I don't know if people know about family constellations and Bert Hellinger's work, and people systematic therapy is coming into vogue a little bit, but can you unpack that a bit?
Sometimes when I ask people if they know, if they've heard of family constellation, one group will say, "Oh yes, of course," like I'm an idiot for just asking, and others will be like, "No, I never heard about it." So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's right.
I don't know if that's true of everyone, but I get that experience anyway. So family constellation is it's a I always hesitate. One could call it a form of group therapy. But then that's not, you don't want to use the word therapy because that kind of implies that you start off with a problem or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So what the way you approach a family constellation is more the way you would approach a prayer. So like if you're
So it's a spiritual practice. I mean,
yeah,
in
yeah,
some ways, it feels like a spiritual practice when you're
yeah,
doing it.
yeah,
A meditation, a contemplation,
yeah,
rather than, okay, we're going to fix some problem.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, actually. That's a good way of putting it, because there's certainly there's a spiritual component that kind of makes it work. So practically the way it works is that, let's just take the standard version. You can do it in other ways, but like the standard version is you're in a group of, let's say, 10 people, 15 people, and then there's a facilitator, the one who kind of holds the space and does the constellation. And then there's a client, which is one of the participants. And usually if you have more time, you'll do like take turns. So maybe not everyone, but 5 or 6 people in the group will get their own constellation. So anyway, and then what the client does is that he or she presents an issue that they would like to have constellated, but as a what you want with the way they present it, you want it to be pushed towards an intention. You don't want someone just saying, "I would like to look at my relationship to my mother." There's no movement in that. That's just like curiosity. So, but maybe they could say, "I would like to have a more fluent relationship with my mother," for instance.
Hmm.
And then based on, but it could also be like, I sense a lot of stress around my work. I get worked out. I get tired. So I'd like to look at that, and I'd like to have a more fluent relationship to my work. Or it can also be I have like physical pain or physical
Hmm.
illness. You can also look at that. You can also look at, if you have children, you can kind of say, my son, he's not doing well. I would like to do something for him. I would like to help him. You can also do that, and then you work for the child. You can't work for your parents because that kind of violates the order of the family
Hmm.
system, so to speak. We can come back to that. But anyway, so the client presents uh, an issue kind of like in the form of a prayer. This is what I would like. This is the difference I would like. And then based on that, part of based on what they say, but also based on, yeah, and this here where the spiritual element comes in, then the facilitator will kind of sense into that issue, listen to the words, sense into the client also. What happens to me is that somehow I get this image, or I get like this. It's not an idea, but it's more like an image of the elements that we need to look at in the constellation. That's kind of how it works with me. My own teacher, I think she has more of a bodily sensation of, she can kind of feel directly into the body of the client. That's not always how it works for me. It works slightly different. But anyway, so based on what the client has voiced, or what their intention, you will then constellate the issue. And the way you do that is that you let the client pick, in the group of participants, they pick representatives for whatever elements are relevant to the constellation. So it can be family members. It can be like, so I will ask the client to say, okay, pick a representative for yourself, your mother, and your grandmother, for instance, or maybe just start with you and your mother, and then we'll see what happens. And then the participants, they move into the circle, and then for reasons I cannot explain, I can just say I've seen it hundreds of times, but it's a mystery how it works. These people, even though they don't know anything about the client, and you don't want the client to kind of say something like, oh, my mother, she's like this and that and blah, blah. You're not using so many words. You kind of want to use as little words as possible. And then, but they can then feel into the family system of the client weirdly. So they will stand in this relationship, mother and daughter, and then they can feel the dynamic. And you can see it, the way they move physically. Are they looking at each other? Maybe the mother's looking this way and the daughter is kind of confused or searching. Maybe one is trembling. Maybe one feels bad. Maybe one is looking down on the floor. All kinds of things can happen. And it's not like people are in a trance or anything. It's not dramatic in that way. It's just like sensations. And then based on that, you build the constellation. Maybe you see, okay, we need more elements in here. Maybe we need the grandmother. Maybe we need the father. Maybe we need some distant relative that we don't even know who is, but there's something there. And all of this, it kind of, you do, of course, if you're a facilitator, of course, you have experience, and there's also a theory, but there's also certain kind of intuition that you open up to that allows you to kind of build this constellation.
And you get information that you couldn't get in a one-on-one situation because you're seeing an overview, right?
Yeah, and also,
and you're seeing how. I've noticed that, like, I've had issues that I wanted to talk through or resolve with somebody one-on-one, and there's an element there, like my grandmother who was pushed out of the family, is affecting it in some way, and I would have never thought that I was suffering from that, because it would seem so far removed. But then these constellations reveal this incredible kind of the fact that we're really working in an intense interdependent web of sorry, I'm
no,
putting words in your mouth here, but yeah, go.
Yeah, the experience that the client will often have is that they will look at the situation, and then they will have an experience of they're seeing something that they've never seen before, but at the same time there's a deep recognition of it, like, oh yes, that's exactly how it is.
Yeah,
they can feel that. So it's like we have it's like we're carrying these inner images inside of us that kind of guides us unconsciously. And then we have these stories that we tell about ourselves. And sometimes the images and the stories, they don't necessarily correspond. And what happens here is that the image is kind of in the old days when you didn't have digital cameras, what did you call it when the developed? Is that what you call it? Like the
Yeah,
film was developed.
developed the blueprint.
Yeah, yeah. So what happens here is that this inner image is kind of developed, and we can see it in front of us. So it's very powerful. And what it also does is that it kind of undercuts all the words that we will use to describe our mother or our life or whatever. And then the image comes instead. And sometimes the stories we tell about ourselves, they actually stand in the way of transformation because we're attached to them. So, but where the image is kind of, we see how the dynamics that are preventing us from living our lives the way that we want to live them. And then once we've seen the image of the current situation, then you start to move the constellation. There's different techniques of doing that. You can put in other elements. You can also give sentences to the different elements. You can also put the client himself or herself into the constellation so they feel it. And then what you're doing there is that you're moving, you recognize the current situation, and then you move the field or you move the image towards a new image, a new dynamic.
The image I have when you're talking was, when water gets kind of caught and it becomes stagnant, and then you move one little twig, and then the water starts to flow again, and something opens up, and life is happening again. Something is flowing, but you've been stuck in this stagnant kind of unconscious dynamic with various people and behaving in ways that you don't even understand. And then when we get that realization, a new stream opens up for you. Does that make sense?
Totally, totally. And it also comes back to the relationship between money and love.
Yeah.
Because fundamentally what we want, like a family system is kind of money. We want love to flow through the family system. We want love to flow from the parents to the children and to their children. So there's a certain hierarchy or a certain order that we want the system to be in order for the love to flow in an optimal way. But if you have an entanglement in the system, you can compare it like you were doing, like to a water pipe that's been like twisted or something, so the water can't flow through it. And it's the same with love in a family system, that it can be kind of entangled, so the love cannot flow through it. So that's what we want to move our inner images of the system, the inner dynamic, towards a state of order where money can, or where love can flow.
Dynamic flowing order. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's the same with money. You want money to flow through your life.
Yeah.
Or you want money to flow through the economy in general, but you also want money to flow. You want to receive money, and you want to spend money.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want to hoard it.
Yeah.
But you don't also want to be without it. You don't want to dry out. You want kind of this flow and you want it to be a flow that liberates you, that kind of allows you to live your life the way you want, and in a way that makes you free, or and sometimes these love entanglements overlay the money entanglements, so you can kind of and it works both ways. You can do a constellation that kind of, which is about money, and it doesn't have to involve your mother explicitly. It can be like, I did one where someone had a business, and he said he wanted money to work in his business, to flow in his business. So so I said, okay, let's pick a representative for your business and one for money. And then we looked at that. And then through that, we didn't talk about his mother or his father, but I could kind of sense that there was something behind it, but I didn't have to say it, or it wasn't important. But then that kind of had effects into his life. I know it had effects into his business life. Whether it also had effects into his family life, I'm not sure. I don't know that. But that can happen. I've experienced that myself, that the work I did with money also kind of has flown into my family life, and the other way around. The family constellation work I've done has flown into my economic life, so to speak. So, yeah.
So, maybe if you'd ask this question, okay, let's say that you all have a painful relationship to money, you don't have enough, or you manage it badly, or um, you know, it's a difficult issue for you. So in the course, somebody's gonna say like, I want to improve my relationship to money. I want to grow my business. I want to find peace with resources. I don't want to feel poor all the time.
Yeah.
What do I do? So what would you how would you start with that? And what would that be for that person? And how
Yeah.
how can you help them in this course?
Yeah. So first of all, maybe we should, like, the scenario I described before was like a physical setting.
Yeah.
But I've done it multiple times online. I remember the first time I did it online, I was like, I wonder if this works online. And then it did. And then I was thinking, like, it's weird enough in the physical setting, so why wouldn't it work online? Like, it's just like marginally more weird in a way. So anyways, so the way we're going to do it in the course, given that it's an online course, it's the same thing. We're going to be on Zoom, and then people will be there with their cameras on, and then we will, like, pick representatives. The client will, or the one who gets the particular constellation, we're going to do multiple constellations in the course, but the one who gets a constellation will kind of pick elements and say, would you be my money? Would you be whatever is relevant? So based on, like, what you stated there, the intent, I would listen to that. So if someone said, you kind of, there was multiple in there, but there was one where you said something along the lines of, I don't want to be poor.
Yeah. Or feel poor,
Or feel poor.
and
And
yeah.
then maybe, depending on, like, you never know until you do the actual constellation, but maybe I would ask the person, who was poor? And then if there's something there, then some relative
Yeah, was poor.
or some will pop up in the mind of the client. Or I will test that. Is someone who was poor? So that would be one way of opening up this
So these are sort of
constellation.
models that people have perhaps copied unconsciously
Yeah,
or taken on. They've
yeah.
taken on the karma or the burden of another person in some kind of way.
Yeah, there would be some sort of love, actually. Also, that's so out of love for the system. If someone has had, like, a very tragic or whatever destiny or life and has been very poor, or something has happened, then, and if this person and this destiny hasn't been properly acknowledged or given a place in the family, if it's like, oh, Uncle Jerry, we don't talk about him, we exclude him from the family history, then sometimes a child or later in the family will kind of pick that up, and out of love, even though they've never met Uncle Jerry, out of love for it, or out of solidarity, they will say, well, out of love for him, I will share his destiny. So I will be poor in order to force the system to recognize Uncle Jerry. Of course, it's stupid. It's like,
But it's unconscious, and we're
it's
mimetic
unconscious.
creatures, and we kind of
Yeah.
copy we copy each other's
Yeah.
behaviors all the time, and
Yeah.
without even knowing we're doing it.
Yeah. So that would be one. So I would sometimes very much go with the words that people are. So also there was another one where you say, I want to grow my business. If that's what you said, I would say, okay, let's pick a representative for your business and pick a representative for you, and we will start off there. and then we would, and then these two participants, they would just go into these roles. And the curious thing is that anyone can do this. Like, so you don't need any experience. That's also weird. Like when you do it for the first time, you're like, how can I be this guy's business? I don't know anything about him. And maybe I don't even know anything about business. Can I do this? Yes, you can, for strange reasons. So you will just go into that role and you don't really do anything. I just ask you to sit there and then feel. What do you feel? And maybe they feel anxiety. Maybe they feel like, and it's not going to be like dramatic, but they will sense something, or maybe I will ask them to look at the camera image of the one who represents the client, for instance, and I will say, what happens when you look at this? Or maybe the other way around. Maybe I will ask the representative for the client to look at the business, and and then I'll ask him, what happens when you look at the business? And then maybe he'll say, oh, I feel something. Yeah, I don't feel good, or I feel angry, or maybe I feel love. Who knows? Like, so that's, yeah. So, and then you just go from there. And for me as a facilitator, I never, of course, I never know how a constellation is going to develop. There's always like an element of surprise, and I also sense that for me as a facilitator, there's always, or typically in the course of a constellation, there's always a point where I'm like, now I don't know how to move further. Now
This is the place to stop. Yeah.
Again?
This is the place to stop. This is the natural stopping point. Yeah.
No, it's more like it. No, this is like in the middle of it.
Oh, this is in the middle of it. Okay.
And then what I need to do, or what I should do, is just to have enough like patience to not like force be oh, let's put in your mother, like do standard something where
a subtle shift maybe.
Yeah, like sort of step back a little bit and then allow the constellation to move itself, so that I'm not doing it, but it's doing it itself. So, and then at some point I kind of get, okay, now I can see where we're going, something like that.
Yeah.
So, so when you do a constellation, and this can take anything from, usually what we're going to do in the course is we're going to have 7 hours altogether, but we're going to do breaks. So maybe it's going to be like, I don't know, 5, 6 hour-ish, something like that. So we're going to have a number of constellations. I don't know how many, but there's going to be a series of them. And usually the first ones tend to be longer, because that's where the field is getting warmed up. And then when the next ones come, you can do them shorter, because that's another beautiful thing that happens in constellations work, is that, yes, there's the client.
Well, I was going to say that,
gets a constellation. But then it turns out that whatever roles or whatever places the participants are being given are never or often they're not random. So they pick it, they tend to tap into something in the participants' own life.
Yeah, the participants are working as well on their own constellations as you're working on you have a primary constellation, but then there's all these other constellations that are arising for the other people. So you're never just a participant. You're always working on something. It seems to me. Yeah, that's beautiful.
And even if you're just looking at it, you can also, it's also working in you. And because on the one hand, we are working with, like, everyone has their own individual intention and dynamic and things. Yeah. So, but at the same time, what we're working with, it's so fundamental that it's common to everyone. Like everyone has a father, everyone has a mother, everyone has some relationship to money. You can be rich, you can be poor, you can be you have a relationship to money, and so there's the dynamics that we're working with. They are in us, in everyone, and then the field. The beauty of it is also that the field is much, much, much smarter than I am, or
Right,
than
right.
anyone is. So the field, it's like
So you allow the field to work, right? That's
yes,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah,
You're not controlling the whole thing as if, in any kind of manipulative way. You're
no,
you're really you're really allowing for a field to transform a situation. So that's
yeah,
extraordinary
yeah.
to
And
me.
sometimes when you're not the client, when you are a participant and you get called in or asked to play, like be a representative in another person's constellation, sometimes that can be as effectful or even more, because it kind of, in a way, it catches you off guard.
Right, right.
So the field kind of senses, oh, there's something in you that kind of, and then
Mm.
you can kind of do it for free.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
get to
yeah,
play it out, but it's not yours,
yeah,
but it is yours. Like
yeah.
it's this, I do it for you. It's like Andrew, oh, he has all these issues or whatever, and I'm just like
So you
his.
can have too much intention, right? And that ruins the
Exactly.
thing,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Like
Whereas
yeah. So it's
whereas sometimes the music has to be allowed to play in the total dynamic for it.
mhm,
And that's when something really happens.
yeah,
The
and
other thing
also
I know I find amazing about constellations is, or I find like noble about it in the sense, I remember my wife used to go to Hellinger in Paris while he was doing constellations, and they did one for her, and he said, I can't do this one, you know,
mm,
I can't go any further with whatever you're doing because I don't have so 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 somebody so that there's a you can't always fix people's problems, and nor should you, and nor
mm,
should you, let's say, tamper with the nature of the thing. What you're trying to do is open something up. You're not
yeah,
you're not trying to you're not trying to, in some sort of manipulative coaching way, get somebody on some kind of a track.
yeah. No, that's very true. That's very true. First of all, you don't. I don't have, or as a facilitator, you shouldn't have any ideas about how people should live their lives. They should live their lives whichever way they want. Like, or in the constellation, that's not, I don't have any, oh, you must do this, you must, or this is a good life, or I don't have anything of that. So I just go with whatever people want themselves or whatever they express themselves. So, and also the constellation, it cannot move further than people want themselves. There's just no more energy there. However, there can also be a situation where you move the constellation to a certain point, and then you can't move further right there. But then you just leave it off. You end the constellation, and people go home. But then or you trust that it's gonna move further itself. So you
Yeah,
started a movement, and then you just let it off, and then it moves by itself.
yeah,
So there's also that. And yeah, and that's another beautiful thing I like about it is that, um, of course, you can do constellations multiple times, but you won't do the same constellation multiple times. You will
yeah,
do a particular constellation you do once, and then you trust that it will move, and then, of course, you can approach the same issue kind of from different angles. You do that sometimes also, but sometimes it's also one session is enough. It's not like psychoanalysis where, yes, now we talk for an hour or 45 minutes, and then you come back in 2 weeks and we do the same, and in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks, and then we do that for 7 years. That's not how it works. You do this, and when the constellation finishes, when you go home,
yeah,
what you're supposed to do is nothing. You don't. There's no homework. There's no go home and practice this or go home and do this or go. No, go home and do nothing, and go home. Even go home and don't talk about this constellation. Go home and don't analyze this constellation,
yeah,
because in a way, your head and your words are the enemy of transformation, because they are kind of stuck in the old pattern where
Yeah, or I think it's more like that the unconscious mind is more effective at working with your wish and your intention
mm,
than you are with your intent, you know, by trying to control the situation or fix the situation, you know, so so it's almost like you need to allow the unconscious to do the work.
yeah. And so you also ask, what will people, what will the clients get out of this? So of course that depends on what they bring to the table, but usually, or you will sometimes you experience some form of release, release of attention, or if there's been some area of your life or a relationship or something where there's been some kind of anxiety, you will feel, maybe sometimes even immediately, even in the constant, you will feel a sense of relief.
Hmm.
You will feel, and also as I will also sometimes, as a facilitator, as the constellation progresses, I will ask the client, how do you feel now? How do you
Yeah.
feel now? And then at some point the client will probably say, now I'm at ease. Now I'm at ease and then maybe
Hmm.
this is where we stop. So there will be some sort of peace or release or something. And then my own experience is that somehow in weird ways it translates into real life, so to speak. And I've seen that happening within hours. I've seen it happening within days. I've seen it happening within weeks,
Yeah.
months,
Yeah.
years. Like, so, yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
I can attest to that. You know, I went to one family constellation. I had a chronic difficulty with something, right? That I've been having for years, like really for years, and I didn't know why. And there was just one sort of shift that needed to happen, and it was gone
Mhm.
because I just was not looking at it in the right way. I was just looking at it in the wrong way. I inherited some way of looking at this one situation or this one person or these behaviors, and then and then and I was like, oh, and then that was gone, and I knew exactly what to do.
Mhm.
And I knew exactly how to get out of this almost intractable hole that I was in.
Yeah.
So that's happened to me during, you know, the very few times I've actually done it, and I did it with you guys a couple times, which was wonderful. But you know, um, so that I just wanted to also just like say,
Yeah.
you know,
I've,
acknowledge what you're saying.
I've had the experience several times also that mm, I've had a constellation. Done I've or someone has done a constellation for me, and then some kind of scenario, something kind of plays out in the constellation, and then I go home or I go and then it's like the same situation plays out in real life. I had one where I think this was within like the next day or something. I've been in a family constellation, and then I drove directly from the constellation place to my parents' home, and then we were at the dinner table, and then like we came in a we sort of we got into a fight or like an argument, but I didn't get, or my father I think it was, or yeah, something like he
Yeah,
kind of like got upset about something, and I was like, well. I didn't get some
yeah,
like sort of I didn't get emotionally dragged into it. I was more like, I'm not gonna. And then I left. And then my mother called. And then I came back. And then da, 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 and then things were kind of resolved in a way.
yeah.
So it was like as if reality kind of played out the scenario, and then it released it. And I've experienced
Mm.
that several times. I've also experienced this sensation of you get in a situation in a particular relation, could be with your partner, that where you kind of like, oh, you know this has happened so many times. You know, okay, now this is gonna happen. Now I'm gonna say this. She's gonna say that. I'm gonna say this. She's gonna say that. I'm gonna feel this. She's gonna feel that. And then you go into that, and then what happens is that I say this, she says this, and then this happens, and then you kind of whoops. The thing that always like went this way, it kind of goes this way.
Yeah, the mechanical pattern or habit that you always fall into,
Yeah,
wow, you found something else. You're acting on spirit, not mechanics or something like that.
yeah,
Gurdjieff said that people are, kind of mechanical. They become sort of mechanical man, he called them.
yeah,
And he says, he said, you have to sort of make a wish or intention to wake up out of this mechanical sleep
yeah,
and find that, the real spirit.
yeah.
Um,
That's very like the what you said there, like the wish. That's
yeah,
really
the wish. The wish is very
the wish.
important.
Yeah,
It's like a prayer, in fact.
yeah.
I was asking you about that because when it comes to money, and when it comes to something you want,
Yeah.
it's very hard to ask for that.
Hmm.
To ask for something you want, you wish, because you feel that that's somehow, oh, please give me something,
Yeah.
you know.
We
So what is a real the right kind of wish or the right kind of I think of it in a way as kind of a prayer, but maybe a wish
yeah.
is a more sort of accurate way of putting it.
Well, I don't. There's not a necessary.
When it comes to money, because
Yeah.
that's like
Like the more, the stronger. Mm, the like the more you can own your wish, or the more you can kind of state your wish without all kinds of excuses or
yeah,
or all kinds of you also the thing is also you
rationalizations.
only change the things for which you take responsibility.
Hmm.
So if you say I have a wish that that other people don't stand in the way of my making more money.
Hmm.
That's not a good one to work with.
Yeah. Well, I
Really?
was thinking that having the wish for more, let's say more resources, having the wish for more has to be for me to feel good about that. It
Yeah.
has to be to enrich the world around me.
Well,
So it
even
has to be to enrich my family. It can't just be for my own masturbation.
well, if that's like if someone were to, well, the thing is that once the constellation begins as soon as the client kind of steps into the position of being a client.
Hmm.
So something already happens right there, which means that it's hard for someone. It's very difficult for someone to say something that they don't truly mean, that they don't truly want.
Hmm.
So if someone can just say something that they really want, if I think I will say, you asked, so what is the right wish? Or, well, it has to be genuine,
Yeah.
and you have to really want it. Or the more you really want it, the more energy there is to work with. So if someone just really wants a lot of money, I'll go with that. If someone would
Yeah.
say, I want a lot of money.
Yeah. If that's a pure like, okay, I just want a lot of money, right?
If someone was there, I would like a lot of money,
Yeah.
then kind of just as I said,
But what do you want the money for? Is it
no,
is
no,
it hookers and cocaine or what
whatever.
whatever? Yeah.
Yeah. If someone were to say, I want money for hookers, I would say, okay, let's pick a constellation, but pick a representative for you, money, and
And the hooker. Yeah.
well, if he
And the
says,
cocaine.
hey, hooker, but if he says more, I would say, and pick 3 hookers.
Yeah.
And then sometimes what happens is that it becomes obvious. Sometimes that's just what we go with. Sometimes it becomes obvious that behind that wish, there's another wish. There's something else,
Hmm.
and then kind of and maybe it turns out that as soon as client looks at money and three hookers and himself, or maybe you throw him in there right away. I probably would do that because he's so like, if there's some, I don't know, I'm feeling into the
Maybe it's not the hookers he wants. He wants to be loved by his mom.
could be,
You know,
or maybe he's
I'm
afraid.
playing here, but
Yeah, no, but it's true. There could be something in there, right?
yeah,
But and this example, which is totally imaginary, there's a cockiness in it. I can
yeah,
feel that, right? Oh yeah, now I'm gonna show this facilitator that I can just blah blah blah. So he would kind of go with that, and maybe I say, okay, go with it, and then I'll throw him in that himself, and then we'll see what happens once he gets to look at the hookers and the money, and then we will see, is that really what you want, or is there something else you want?
yeah.
So, yeah, this is a very rare, but um, I remember one, like I've seen hundreds, maybe I don't know how many constellations, but I remember now that we talk about it, I remember once there was a woman, and she was very how can I put, like, it's a very immediate in her. Yeah, she was also a little childish in a way, but in
Hmm.
a nice way. And she got up there and she said, like clearly, like stated, I'd like a boyfriend. And I was
Yeah,
like, cool. Like this is something that people will be like, they don't want to say this directly.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
she was like, I want a boyfriend. And everyone in the room was like, who doesn't want a boyfriend? Like, who doesn't want you to have a boyfriend? There was like just
We almost missed the most obvious
exactly, yeah.
thing, right? We complicate things with
Yeah,
our rationalities and make some story, but
yeah,
we want something very primordial.
yeah,
Like I think money is very primordial. You
yeah.
know, and that's what's kind of interesting about the energy of money and working with it and thinking about
And
it.
of course, like, and of course, the workshop is not just for people who want a lot of money, because money can also like stand in the way of you
Hmm.
getting what you want. Like maybe you want financial independence, or maybe you. I did a constellation once with this was a, a company, and they were kind of doing, it was like a retreat center thing, and so they were doing all these workshops and stuff, and but they couldn't get the money to flow in the business. So one of the things we constellated in there was debt, because they had a debt.
Yeah.
So we kind of and they were like, oh,
Hmm.
they didn't want to look at the debt. So that was kind of where the solution was, because they
The
didn't want
solution is where you don't
to,
want to look,
they actually
often.
didn't want to have anything to do with money.
Yeah.
They needed money, but they didn't have anything to do with money. So they were kind of excluding money because it was a little bit like you said in the beginning, like dirty. But then that also stood in the way of them developing their business. So the solution here was to get them to look not only at the money, but look at the debt, and look at debt with gratitude, because it was because of the debt that they had been able to even get the
Oh, that's very interesting.
started. So there was like they should acknowledge their debt to the debt, like they were indebted to the debt, or they had been given
Right,
something.
because the debt is it's a strong message here. It's
Yeah,
telling you something. It's saying wake up. So thank
yeah,
God for the debt. Otherwise, you don't want. I mean, people are afraid to get in debt, and people are afraid of their debts, and they hide their debts, and there's so much shame around
yeah,
being in debt.
yeah,
That again, I think the insight I got when you were talking is like, the knights of the round table enter the forest in the place the darkest place, the place they don't want to look.
yeah.
Maybe the constellation allows people to enter that, but not in a violent way, but in the way that they really need to and want to actually see that.
Yes.
Yeah,
What you always, I is that I think that's always the there's the place where you don't want to look,
yeah,
and then you kind of we need to go there, and but the thing is that when we do look, what we find there is love.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
as soon as so some of the kind of standard phrases that we will say in a constellation would often be something about saying yes
Yeah.
rather than saying no. You say yes,
Yeah.
or you say thank you. So you say thank you to the debt, or you say thank you to the bank, or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's in the same way that in a family, you like this, your mother, like, or your father, or your something like that. There can be a family where you have like a
Yeah.
conflict or a difficult relationship.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you need to recognize that, but turn it around in a way where you say, well, you you gave me life. If it's my mother, you gave me life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Gratitude. Yeah.
Yes, you gave me life. So that's kind of so seeing love and also also meeting yourself with love in the sense that imagine you.
Yeah, but often we think of the banks, sorry to interrupt, as this cold monster beast. And
Yeah,
we sort of we look at them with resentment. You know,
mm,
we look at even if we have this money, but like, why do we have to work to earn money and to be a wage slave in some
yeah,
kind of a way? That was the other question I kind of had wanted to ask you about, because often people say time is money, and I think that's false. And I think like there's a bad sort of relationship people have with time and money. They want to measure everything by how much work they did and how much they should deserve,
mm,
and whereas the whole thing is much more
yeah,
serious than that. Or does my
yeah,
question make any sense?
yeah. It does. It does. In economics and in life, in societal life in general, we often think that the difficult thing is giving. Like we kind of
Mm,
think, oh yeah, people want to hold on to their money, they want to hold on to all kinds of stuff, they don't want to give. But in fact, the really difficult thing is receiving. That's much more difficult than giving. Because when we give, if I give you something, I'm bigger than you. I put myself in a position where you need me. You are the child, so to speak, and I'm the grown up. I'm the bigger one,
mm,
you're the smaller one. Whereas if I receive something from you, or if I say to you, Andrew, you have something that I really, really need, and I don't necessarily have anything to give back to you other than thank you. That puts me in a position of being the small one, the child. And we have this idea that it's better to be big than small. But
mm,
when we're big, that prevents us from receiving.
mhm.
So let's
Sort
also,
of pride, right? Sort of a
yeah. So in terms of when people make money from work, they like to talk about their work as being very, very hard and difficult. And oh, I work so hard, it's such a blah, blah, blah. And that's because they want the give and take relationship with work to be one where, yes, I do get some money, but I give a lot more because it's so hard and I work so many hours and oh, blah, 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 blah. So, um, but the thing is that, and I think also one of the reasons why some people, not everyone, but some people, they work so much, but some people do because they like it. That's how they want to live their life, and that's fine. But others do it out of like they don't feel they're not able to receive things or take things like without guilt or without so they kind of feel no, I haven't I don't deserve this, or
yeah.
I need to
Sort of
work
a negative version of original sin. I'm
yeah
fundamentally bad and I don't
yeah
deserve this, and
yeah
I'm, kind of thing.
and but the thing is, when we're in personal relations, sometimes if someone if you give something to someone and this someone really needs what you give them and they're just like, thank you, then you yourself as the giver are like, wow,
Yeah.
how nice, how nice it is to just be allowed to give you this and then receive gratitude back. So I think in our culture there's a lack, there's we don't
Maybe
receive.
so we think it's just a one-on-one sort of, we kind of quantify everything
Yeah,
to a
yeah,
one-on-one relationship. And so we're always trying to like measure giving
yeah,
and taking. And
yeah,
that, whereas we need to have a lot of sort of, I think, gratuitousness, just, just giving for the hell of it. And then somebody's happy and that's great. And
yeah,
then,
and receiving.
and then, oh, I got, yeah, this
Oh,
thing happened. Yeah. How wonderful this thing happened to me. I got this,
yeah, yeah,
bonus or
yeah,
whatever. Right.
and,
Yeah.
and and I deserve it just in the same way that like being when you're born, you're given life by
Yeah.
your mother and father, and that's the greatest gift. Like, and you can never repay that. Like, you can never repay that to your mother or your father, and you can. So sure, you might as well not try. You might as well just
Yeah.
say, "Thank you, mother and father. You've given me this great gift. Now, what I'm gonna do with this is that I'm gonna use it for something good. That's kind of
Mm.
the way I can pay you back. And if I have children, I will give life to them, and then your parents will be happy because they got their life for free, and then they're giving it for free, and then, but that's very difficult. There's all kinds of entanglements in this, so we think yeah, and so which is why a lot of it can be difficult to kind of fully receive life. Like
Yeah.
we kind of get stuck in these things. So and it's the same with work. Like many people hate their work, but they can't let go of it either.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, they need the money. That's kind of the obvious explanation. But sometimes there's a more underlying. Well, even if they didn't need the money, they still couldn't let go of it because they kind of, yeah, they have some sort of yeah, they have some sort of attachment to this work.
Attachment to their self-image of who they are and what they need to do the work and what's possible.
Yeah,
Right. I think again, it was like you were saying about crypto or about money as a there's it's all out there, right?
yeah, yeah,
But we don't really think it's possible to get it, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
for rich people. They're not like us, they're
yeah,
you feel like we feel like we're trapped within our own sort of we trap ourselves through our own sort of definition of who we
yeah,
think we are on
yeah,
some level.
yeah. I also want to like, in terms of if people want to kind of start thinking into what they would want to maybe bring to the workshop.
Hmm.
So they can think in terms of money, but it's also they can also think about in terms of work, because work and money is very sort of intimately connected. So maybe the issue that kind of comes up in your life, and I'm not talking to you, Andrew, but I'm talking to a viewer here. The way that the money issue kind of comes up in your life is something to do
Yeah.
with work. It's
Yeah.
related to work, so we can also work with that. That's perfectly fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes, some of us don't have a 9 to 5 kind of way of doing things. We have different ways of doing things.
Hmm.
I don't know about you, but I feel like I have a different way of doing things.
Hmm.
And in terms of money, it's not a regular paycheck. It's more like it's more like a roller. So yeah, I guess, and I don't apologize for that or. I think I like being that way. I don't want to be on the treadmill,
Hmm.
but I know everybody's different and everybody has a different relationship to money and a different
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. And as I said before, I don't have like a fixed, or this is how you should.
Yeah.
I think it. I think I want, or I wish for everyone to have a relationship where with money that kind of allows them to like be free, be sovereign in their life. And for some, that's having a lot of money in the bank or a lot of money in gold and silver, or like,
Yeah.
and for some, it's just having money that kind of comes when they need it. And then they don't have some, but they don't need it. And then they need it, and then it comes. Some people have that relationship to money. And some people want to be poor. And if that's what they really want, then go with that. Some people also really want to be sick. And if that's what they want, but if they come to the constellation, say, I don't want to be poor anymore, then we can do something else. So, yeah.
Okay.
I was thinking, I wonder what I would do if a rich man came and say, "Oh, I have all this money. Can you help me in this
What do I do with it?
I want to be
I've
poor.
got billions. What do I do with all this money? It's
I would
like, it's
be
driving
poor.
me
I don't know
crazy.
how I would do what I would do with that.
Yeah. I want to be poor. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not something that people use. I guess
Maybe I could.
people give away everything and go and live in monasteries.
Yeah, I
That's
know. I think I know what would happen.
that was a common thing that people used to do, and they live a simple life and a very joyful life.
Yeah,
That's a possibility, I think.
I think
But
someone.
if you have a family, uh, um, uh, and you have to pay the bills, you want to feel good. You don't want to feel that you're oppressed all the time by not having enough. So it's a different game.
I think if someone, just thinking along the lines of this,
Yeah.
if someone, a rich person, were in the constellation or in the group saying, "I want to be poor," I'm sure that in the group there would be someone who would be like, "Oh, I'm poor.
I
I'd like
want something what you have.
to see the
Yeah.
constellation." And I say, "Well, that's two constellations. In one, you just give all this money to this poor guy, and then we're all happy." I can kind of see the field working that way.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah.
Let's see.
Great.
Let's see if that happens.
Let's see if that happens. Well, we've talked a little bit longer than we originally planned, and I think we had a wonderful conversation. It feels like we're moving towards the end of it.
Yeah.
I just want to encourage everybody to do this experiment. Come and hang out with Ole and try constellations, because I think you might find some very interesting, surprising things about yourself, right? Would you not agree?
Yeah, I'd hope so. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
Okay.
and also, like, just my own experience is also just being in this space, this constellation space, is just a really joyful, in a way, experience. It's I have the when I've done a constellation weekend, I have the feel, if like I think if my emotions were like a piano, where each um uh, what do you call, like a thing? What is that called on the piano?
Each note on the piano,
Yeah,
each key.
each key would be one of my emotions. Like, then I feel like someone has played the entire piano. Like, so all of my emotions have been sort of like, yeah, woken up in a way. Not, yeah. So I'm kind of emotionally energized. So, yeah. So that's also a reason for coming.
Great. Okay.
And maybe just to say, like, technically, you can come, and then you can get a constellation. You can also come and just be a participant. You don't have to have get a constellation. And depending on the amount of participants and time, I don't know if there's going to be a constellation for everyone. But what I do know is that, and just out of experience, the field is so smart. It knows how many people are there. It knows everything. So everyone gets what they need and what they want. So usually by the end of a workshop, everyone kind of feels satisfied. Even those who didn't get a constellation, they were like, well, I don't need one because I was in this other one, and blah, 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 something like that. That's my experience. So,
Okay, great. Okay, anything else that you want to say to the folks?
well, I'm doing the workshop with my colleague and friend Viljami, who's also a friend of Andrew. And Viljami and I I don't know how many works. We've done several workshops together, so we work very well together.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Again, I know Viljami, great guy, very competent at doing this, and Ole and Viljami work very nicely together as a team. So I think it's going to be great.
yeah. Wow, this is really nice.